Welcome back to Bruins Diehards, your source for all things Boston Bruins. And I brought back a returning guest, Brian DeFilce from Puck Ups, the skate pod. You know him, you love him. How you doing, Brian?
Good Court. What a lovely intro that was. Pumping
Well,
my tires.
well, I was trying. I'm trying. I can't be as good. I know so many people do like some great, like imaginative intros. I don't have much of that. I felt just go with the announcer vibe and just
Yeah.
go with it like I'm at a hockey game. We
Yeah.
at my daughter's hockey games, we actually have people that actually do the play-by-plays, which is hilarious.
Ooh.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. Not a chance. Like
Now, how old is she?
she is 9. She
You know,
plays U11 hockey.
I remember obviously growing up in New England, this area of the US, hockey is very big, but when we would go to tournaments in Canada, whether it was suburbs of Montreal or Ottawa, Toronto, they do it right with kids tournaments. Like they get the music and the cowbells and the announcers, and it's really cool when you're young when they make you feel special. So that's cool that they do that for her in her
Yeah,
games.
so before every single home game, they actually announce the players as they walk on the ice. This is
That's really
U
cool.
U U11.
That's
I think
really
it's a
cool
little bit
though.
overboard sometimes. But as I said before, for people knowing, my daughter right now is not allowed looking at screens because she has a very important hockey game tonight, and she's got
Yes.
to be prepped for her game because we
Yep.
take it seriously. And while we're recording, I believe the USA is the U.S. women's team is beating the Canadian women's team right now. It's prelims of the Olympics. So as always with Bruins Diehards, we're going to be talking Boston Bruins, but it's the Olympic break. So
Mm.
we're going to be talking the Beanpot. BC just won. They beat Boston University, but as we might as well call it, a lot of people last night were calling it the Dean Pot. If you
I
didn't see
heard.
that hashtag going, and we were also going to do our Olympic preview. The last time Brian was here, we actually talked a little bit of Olympics. We just couldn't really get in it because it was at the end. So we're going to go through actually Canada, US. We're going to go through the men's teams. We're going to go through the lines. It starts this Thursday. You're watching this or listening to this on Wednesday. All the games start on Thursday. That's all the hockey we're going to be getting professionally wise for the next little bit until the Bruins' first game back is the February 26th, I believe. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking, liking, subscribing. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's get into it. Brian,
Yes.
Beanpot was last night. Did you go?
I did not go. No, I was actually just finishing recording an episode, but I did catch the game because Court. It takes a long time to upload hour-long videos to YouTube and whatnot. So I was watching the first two periods where I am now, and got home for the third. And yeah, there was a lot of Bruins prospects. Morello for BU, and then of course you have Letourneau and Hagens and Gasso, and Will Moore was hurt, but Hagens brings home the MVP, and so Don Sweeney looks pretty good last night.
Yeah, so you had Andre Gasso is on BC, James Hagen's on BC, Christian Kadinsky was on BC. You had Mason Langerburner, who was on Harvard, who was also in the Beanpot, but he didn't play in the game last night. Dean Letourneau on BC. Will Moore was hurt, BC, as you mentioned, and Jonathan Morello, who plays for BU. But we had a BC win. It was the first time since 2016 that BC had won the Beanpot. We had Dean Letourneau by the end of the game it was the Dean Pot, and we had James Hagens take home the MVP of the tournament. And I have to say, it was funny. The last time we talked about how Hagens had such a good World Juniors, and we said that he needed to have a big bean pot to be, that stepping stone because this is a real judgment.
Mm.
This is best on best for him. This is some good hockey. This is hockey that means something. And what do you think? I think Hagens has stepped up in both occasions.
Yeah, you and I kind of caused quite the stir last time we spoke with that that trade you know possibility, but we were just having a fun conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think Higgins is he's playing really good. I mean, obviously he's producing at over a point per game clip. I think he had 38 points in 38 games last year. I forget where he is exactly right now, but
24 games. He got 15 goals, 16 assists for 31 points. He's over a
yeah.
point per game right now.
So there you go. And when all said and done at the end of the playoffs for them, he'll probably be somewhere in the 40s. So I think it's interesting for him is he's played a lot of wing this
Yeah.
season, and that deployment doesn't necessarily mean I think he'll be a wing long term in Boston. No, not necessarily, but I do think it's at the very least it provides good versatility. I mean, you saw it with Patrice Bergeron and some other centermen coming to the NHL, and they start on the wing just to get some seasoning. So it's not that crazy, but I find it interesting. And so you hear a lot of Bruins fans saying, "Well, hold on, isn't he supposed to be a center? Why is he playing so much wing?" But it's kind of freed him up to produce. So it's interesting to follow, but I think he's been pretty good overall. Definitely not discouraged by his play whatsoever.
No, I'm almost encouraged by his play, especially how he played in the Beanpot and how he played in the World Juniors, because I felt that was very indicative of what he was going to, not what he's going to be in the NHL, but can he step to that next level and play at a higher pace? Because when you're playing in NCAA or when you're playing in juniors, but when you play in these bigger things like the Beanpot or when you play in the World Juniors, it's a higher pace hockey. It's best on best for that age. And I think that he's stepped up admirably in both. His 15 goals and 16 assists, he's been playing phenomenal for Boston College this year. Him playing on the wing, I wanted to ask you, do you think that was Boston College putting him on the wing, or was that the Boston Bruins putting him on the wing?
I don't think it's the Bruins. I think it's BC. I think it's Greg Brown, the head coach, and I think that with Andre Gasso being healthy again, he's one of those more older, mature college players. Again, Bruins prospect. Letourneau's playing well at second line center. Will Moore was playing center. I just think Greg Brown was trying to maybe find a way to loosen up Higgins while still stacking that top line. I don't think Don Sweeney is really. I don't think it's jurisdiction. I know he's a Bruins prospect, but you have to respect, other people's organizations and whatnot. So I think they let BC do BC.
So, a question for James Higgins. He's proven himself at two huge moments this year so far. So both times where he's had to step up. Is it safe to say the Bruins stole him in the draft now? Do you think he would have been drafted higher if he would have performed this way last year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that I felt like he was a steal when it happened. I think that you're going to look back at that draft class and so much happened in like the month or two before the draft. I mean, Brady Martin's stock went sky high pretty much in the summertime because of, his summer showcase. I think other teams just had different needs, right? Like Chicago, they have Connor Bedard, who's that younger, skilled center. I think that they wanted to go with Anton Frondel, who was more of a bigger body, right? Utah brought in Caleb Denwyer, but they already have Logan Cooley, so maybe they wanted that more conservative 2 or 3C guy down the middle. Like teams had different needs, so yeah, I think Philly goes for Porter Martone. Like, okay, so they clearly wanted a big-bodied winger. Like, it's just a different, So, I think Higgins was a steal when they drafted him, and I think history will look back and people will more likely say than not, "Wow, Higgins went 7th that year. That was pretty low."
Now, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that he signs a professional contract with the Boston Bruins? Burns his entry level deal. So he's going to burn a year regardless. But do you think he either starts in Providence, and does he play wing? Does he play center? And does he even see a game with the Boston Bruins this year?
You know what? I think there's some gamesmanship here, and I think that Higgins, if you remember when he was drafted, he made comments in the summer during rookie camp and whatnot, like he felt like he was ready for the NHL. Well, he went back to BC. So clearly the Bruins didn't feel that same way. I think he did a solid, for the team by putting his head down, going back to school. I feel like with high prospects like this, you kind of have to meet them halfway. So I do think that when BC's season ends, I do think they might give him a game or two, but it's also tough, Court, because like if the Bruins are in a spot where they have to get 2 points to make the playoffs, they might, I don't know. It's a tough situation to put a rookie in for a tryout, right? So it's really hard to actually guess, but I do think he'll get some pro games in the spring. I just don't know if it's going to be Boston or Providence.
Yeah, and do you think because I'm looking at it, I think it's a foregone conclusion that he signs at the end of the year. I think we'll get into Dean Letourneau. I think Letourneau goes back for another year at BC, and he gets to be the guy next year. I think Gasso, is another guy who signs at the end of the year. He's 22 years old. He's going to sign a professional contract, and he'll be playing for the Providence Bruins. I think those are the two guys.
Yeah.
We're going to sign a deal at the end of the year. I think Hagen stays in Providence, and the only reason I say that is because I look at what they did with Poitras this year and with Lysell, and Poitras only gets to come up because they lost Saka and Lindholm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Poitras, even though I'm still going to say this till I'm blue in the face. I thought he played well in his little 2-game skid there. Um, he wouldn't have came up. I think they're going to be more patient with guys. I'm not saying Dean Letourneau taught them that, but I think Dean Letourneau has taught all of us as fans to be patient with kids. But I think the only way, I think you're kind of right. I don't think Hagen sees the Boston Bruins lineup unless they're out of it or they needed to throw him in. But I think he's on the wing. I think they're
Yeah.
Tyler Seguin him. I think he's going to get Tyler Seguin and he'll be on the wing.
That's another good example, Court, too. Yeah. And again, that might not mean that their intention is for him to always play wing, but I do think that it's easier to get your feet wet at the NHL level on the wing. You just have less responsibilities. I will say, I just simply put, I don't think he's going to go back to Boston College next year, right? So he's definitely going pro. Um, and as far as like burning a year on his entry level deal, I mean, if people are sitting there saying, don't do that this year, get that extra year starting next year, then like I see it, but I just, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure. So you got to play 10 games, right? So if the Bruins make the playoffs and he's in the lineup for the playoffs, then you play a couple of playoff games, a couple of regular season games. It won't take much to burn that year. So if you're somebody who's adamant that you don't want the Bruins to burn his entry level year this spring, then maybe Providence is the play.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be a thing that teams care about anymore. The fans seem to care more than the teams do about burning the year, especially on a player like Hagen's. Like, they burn McAvoy's. You've seen countless NCAA players come up and get their year burned. And as you mentioned before, you alluded to it. He didn't want to go back. He made it clear he wanted to play for the Boston Bruins, but the Boston Bruins kind of made it clear to all of us that that wasn't going to happen, especially the way they did their media
Hmm.
during the thing. Like, 'cause people didn't realize they didn't really focus on Hagens and do a lot of social media stuff on him because they knew they weren't. I think they had a plan with him, which I appreciate. They didn't want to rush. So we'll see what happens with him. We'll see what happens with Casso. And the way I look at it is, if you live in that area, get some Providence Bruins tickets for the end of the year because you get to see these kids play. And the Providence Bruins are going to be one heck of a hockey team.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a lot of talent down in Providence. I mean, Georgi Merkulov, I think, set the franchise record in points. Matej Blumel is obviously a guy who's been a prolific scorer in the minors. You have Patra, you have Lysell. You add Hagens to that mix. I think, hey, there might be a Calder Cup for the Bruins organization this year. I think they should be one of the best teams down there. So it'll be interesting to follow for sure. The one thing about McAvoy, though, you mentioned, Core, the only difference there is if you remember that spring, right before the playoffs, the Bruins, Brandon Carlo got hit from behind from Ovechkin. He was out for the year. McQuaid was hurt. Krug was hurt. Colin Miller was hurt. So they legit needed bodies. I don't know if, right now, like you said it earlier, we'll see what happens with Zaka, right? But if the Bruins don't have all the injury issues up front, there might not be as much of a dire rush.
Oh, 100%. But I'm just saying, I don't think there's going to be a worry if they have to burn it because just like in the McAvoy situation, if they got to do it, they got to do it. Um, but that doesn't also necessarily mean that Hagens is the guy. If Patra is still down there, I would seem to think that Patra's still that. I think Patra proved it coming up in those 2 games. I thought he was very tough, especially in that game against Tampa. And I don't know if you saw in his game against Providence just recently, he just dropped the mitts too. So like, good on Patra. Love the kid. I hope nothing but the best for him. I hope he gets another look. I thought he played well between Kastelik and Tanner
Yeah.
Jeannot. I thought that was a good line. I really liked that line for some reason. It felt like he had the Bash brothers on one side and he could
Yeah.
just go out there and play his game. I really
Yeah.
liked it. But I wanted to talk more about still with the Bruins prospects in the Beanpot because I feel that a certain someone had his coming out party during this Beanpot, and not just because this season right now, and I'm talking about Dean Letourneau. Dean Letourneau right now has played 26 games for Boston College. He's got 16 goals, 12 assists, and 28 points, above a point per game. And I saw trending on Twitter last night, Dean Pot, because he played phenomenal in this tournament.
Yeah, it's been a continuation of his season, and obviously Last season is well documented, right? He had three points, no goals, but it's tough because he goes right from what was essentially high school hockey to Boston College because Will Smith goes pro and he goes to San Jose, and so BC needed a body, and he went to college hockey a year too early, and it's easy to look at a kid like Letourneau and say, well, you know what, he's 6'7", like what's the big deal? Sometimes those bigger athletes, yeah, they're big, so you don't feel bad for them out there, but they're still learning how to utilize their size and their reach at the higher levels. And I think that last year was a big learning experience for Letourneau. And me personally, was I disappointed with his lack of production last year? I noticed it. I wasn't super bothered with it. I kept telling myself last year, let's see what he does next year. If this year was more of a continuation of last year, then I would be disappointed. But yeah, he's just been as good all year, and he's having his shot is it's not just like garbage goals he's getting. He's having really nice finishes. He's going to the net. So yeah, maybe you're looking at a legit top 6 forward for Boston in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. His shot is unbelievable, and we found out last year he had a broken wrist, right? So I got to watch
Yes.
him in St. Andrews College. It's actually not too far. So I heard about him. So the year the Bruins drafted him, he was the guy I wanted only because I got to watch him all the time, and I was like, "Oh my god." My biggest issue with him at the time was his skating, and during this Christmas break, I was in Ottawa and I had to take a pee, and I went into the Ottawa Senators training facility because it was just happened to be right there. And he was on the ice. I talked to his skating coach, and that's what he's been focusing on the most. His shot is just natural ability.
Yeah.
His brother's a pretty good hockey player as well. His brother was out on the ice, but his skating coach was telling me like she feels that he is going back to BC. I have no doubt that he plays another year in BC, and I understand people can get some reservations about players going back to the college because he can technically sign a UFA deal with anybody if the Bruins don't sign him at that end of that year. But he needs to work on his skating because I agree with you. Yeah, he had his struggles. If he struggled this year, then I'd be really scared. I it's fine. People are going to call him a bust last year, but I think that he's proven to a lot of people this year, not that he's going to be a top 6 player, but that he might be able to be a serviceable professional in the future. Like, I don't know what the future holds for Dean
Yeah.
Letourneau because I would like to see another year of success and maybe some more. I think his skating needs to get better, just because he's got that large frame. But could he be a net front presence in the bottom 6 in a couple years in Boston, or a bottom be the next Kastelik? Right? Kastelik's a big body, just like Letourneau.
Yeah.
Um, change his game. We don't know what Letourneau is going to become, but I thought that he kind of had a coming out party. Like it was almost like he had an FU tournament
Yeah.
where he was like, "All you people that got mad at me, now look at me. I'm one of the best players." He was one of the best players in that tournament.
Yeah. I feel like his ceiling is still being determined, and that may extend into once he's already in the NHL. Players' ceilings don't get finalized just because they make the NHL. So his ceiling is still a question mark, but I think his floor has risen, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I think when you talk about his skating too, Court, like it's one thing to to be producing now at the NCAA level. It's going to be another thing to produce at the AHL level. It's going to be another thing to produce at the NHL level because the more you rise in the ranks, the game gets faster and faster, both in terms of speed and decision making. So it's great to see him have some really nice finishes with his shot this season. Can his skating allow him to create the same time and space to get that shot off in the AHL, in the NHL? And that's going to be what's next for him. And so I'm with you. I have no reservations with him going back to BC for a third year. I don't think there's any rush with getting Dean Letourneau to Boston. If he's meant to get there, he will get there when he's meant to. So
Yeah, I'm 100% with you, and I think it's interesting. I think after the Beanpot, I think if people were going to do their prospect rankings of the Boston Bruins, I think Hagens is number one. I'm not saying Letourneau is number two now, but I think he's risen
yeah,
from what people originally had as their like Hagens, Lysell, whatever the order would be. I think Will Zellers has risen. I think Will Zellers is in that top 3.
I
Maybe
like him a lot.
yeah, same. I think Zellers could be number 2. I really like that kid, and I think Letourneau's in that top 5 now.
Yeah.
Just I was very impressed with his poise in this tournament. I was lucky enough to get to watch the games. Here in Canada, we don't get to actually watch a lot of college
Mhm.
hockey, but this year it's been on.
That's great.
TSN Sports Network, or they call it the Toronto Sports Network here in Toronto area, because all they do is ever talk about the Leafs. But we've been
Right.
able to watch it. But for everybody else, I don't know if you know this, you can watch all the games after the fact on YouTube, and I do that a ton. That's how I even watch Bruins games. You can watch sportsnet.ca. I don't know if it shows up on you, but if you go on Sportsnet on YouTube, sometimes it gets blacked out. But a lot of different get a VPN and you can watch it, and you can watch all the games after. And they'll
Wow.
play them all. They'll play them in 10 minutes, so you can watch the whole game in 10 minutes, and it cuts out all the garbage. So, I
That's
don't know.
awesome.
For those people, yeah, you just need a VPN. There's even a great, documentary called Rivals that's by the CBC about the 4 nations. So if you have a VPN, go to CBC on YouTube, and then you can watch it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I actually clicked that link, but it restricted me because of my area, so I don't know if there's a cheat code around that, but
VPN. So if you
okay.
have a VPN, that's the
Okay.
cheat code, so you can go on and watch it. It goes into detail and behind the scenes of everything to do with, like, what was going on in North America at the time between Canada and the United
Mm.
States, and how
Mhm.
much of a, melting pot it was. But I think that, kinda, like, leads us into our next conversation, because it's the Olympics, and we're gonna talk about the Olympic hockey tournament. And, we are gonna talk about Canada and the United States, because I know that's those are the nice shiny things that everybody wants to talk about, especially the United States, when we have Jeremy Swayman, who, it's crazy. They're still talking about him possibly being, second string, not Jake Ottinger, or at least giving a chance because of Hellebuck's, you know, un- underperformance when it comes to big games. But
Mm.
we're going to go through. Daily Faceoff has line combinations, so I'm going to go through this with Brian. We're not going to cover every team. I'm not going to cover the Swiss. I'm not going to cover Italy. We're going to cover Latvia, just only because Don Lashmalis is on the team, so we're going to cover it. So we're going to
Yep.
actually start with Latvia, and I'm going to just name off some players, and the starting left winger you're probably going to recognize real quick, because this is who the US is playing. Now, Latvia, and I will preface this, have been an underdog team every international play, and they have beaten Canada on more than one occasion. So they are not a walk in the park for Team USA. Team USA plays them Thursday. That's their first game. Their top line is Sandis Vilmanis. We may all know about him hitting Charlie McAvoy and not getting suspended for it, which is ridiculous. And I don't know if you saw, he was interviewed about it yesterday, and he said that yes, he wanted to go back in the game, and his coach wouldn't let him go back in the game because pretty much didn't
Yeah.
want him to get his crap kicked out of him. Zegman Gergerson, Eduardas Tramax. Now, I'm going to screw up every single one of these, so people are going to be correcting me. Your second line is Richards, Buckharts, Teddy Bulger, Rudolph Balasiers, Renars Kratzenbergs, Don
God,
Schlossmelis. They have him as his third line center.
God bless you,
Casper
Court.
Casper Dogovins. We all know and love that name.
We do.
And then another Bukarts, Roberts Bukarts, Oscar Bantana, Martin Dezerkals, and then for notable names, they don't have any more. Like I'm just not. What do you think of Latvia's chances in this
Mm.
tournament? There's the only name that we would know, I guess, would be Casper Donovigas. Everybody
Yep.
knows that name. Don Loshmelis, Zegman Gergmanson, and Sandis Velmalanis. But the rest
Yeah.
of them, like, and Teddy Bulger, they're not all household names.
No, first of all, you're a brave soul for rattling those names off without even practicing, because
Oh,
that's
I don't
very
care.
no.
I screw them up all the time, and people correct me. I actually have many people that listen to this podcast that'll go in and correct me. I'm okay being wrong. In fact, I'm
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
doing a video right now that I'm writing up that is I was wrong about a certain someone on the Boston Bruins. I'm okay
Ooh.
with being wrong. And it's Bluger, not Bulger. It's Bluger. I
Yeah,
did say
Teddy
that
Bluger.
incorrect. Yeah.
Um, well, you're right, Court. I mean, you talk about Latvia. They're as a program, they are definitely rising. And you mentioned they played Canada in the most recent World Championship. Now,
Their
Canada,
goaltending is good. My apologies. I didn't want to interrupt. It's Svilos and Merzlikins. They actually have 2 good goalies.
yeah, Elvis Merzlikins, yeah, with Columbus, right?
Yeah.
So Canada won that game in the World Championships, but Sidney Crosby came out afterwards and actually saying some praise for Dan Zlochmelis. Yeah, I mean, Teddy Bluger, NHL experience. Zlochmelis, NHL prospect. He'll get NHL time in his life. Casper Dogovins, we all remember from missing the wide open net in the 2013 finals. We won't go there, but and then yeah, Trail Max. I remember him. He's a big bodied winger. He's got some speed and skill, but generally speaking, yeah, they're not going to be an easy out. I do think, Court, and we'll get into predictions later, obviously, but in terms of group play, yes, you're right. Don't overlook Latvia. Don't overlook Germany. Like, you don't want to overlook your oppositions, because that's when bad things happen. But I do like the fact, if I'm a Canadian fan, that the Canadians get to play the Czechs in group stage. I like that the Finns get to play the Swedes. What does kind of scare me about the US is their group play isn't going to be, on paper at least, that challenging. And that comes back to the goaltending you were talking about. Is Connor Hellebuck going to be, that tested playing Latvia, Germany, and Denmark? So, but yeah, the Latvians, they're going to be a stingy team and a stingy out for sure. And that's why these tournaments are fun, because you look at the rosters on Daily Faceoff and you see all the NHL names for the big boys, but we don't know all the names that are playing overseas for these other teams. But that doesn't mean that these guys can't play. Right? They certainly can.
Heck, that's how we all, even though he was a Boston Bruins prospect, Don Zlochmelis, that's how we learned about him. The Crosby thing. Like, he became a household name to Bruins fans because Sidney Crosby was like, that guy checked me harder than what did he say? He goes, I haven't seen someone check me like that since Patrice Bergeron. Like, that's a huge compliment, right?
Yes.
Like, you got to take one of those things and run with it. So I agree with you. Like, I look at Canada's first game, which is going to be against the Czechia. So like, I'm like, that's a huge first game. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And they could definitely lose that game. But I agree with you. I don't think Latvia is an easy out. We might not recognize these games, but these guys play together a lot. And that's another thing that they have in their back pocket. These guys play together a lot more. These NHL teams they're a ragtag put together team. These other international teams, some of these guys play together on a regular basis. And this says a lot about chemistry. So next on the list, Team Germany. I think this one will be a lot more NHLers. So on the left wing, Lucas Reichel. At center, one of the best players in the world, Leon Draisaitl. I wonder how many cigarettes he's going to have while he's playing. On the right side, Dominic Kuhan. On the second line, we got JJ Peterka, Tim Stützle, who my opinion has changed on Tim Stützle as the years gone by. I think that guy is a lot better than people think. Like, he is a player. And then we got Wojciech Stanowak. Definitely said that wrong. Third line, we got Frederick Tiflis, Just Samansky, Parker Tome, Alexander L, Nico Sturm, Tobias Ryder. And then on the back end, they got Fabio Wagner, Mort Seider, probably one of the most underrated defensemen in the NHL. That guy is unbelievably. Jonas Mueller, Kai Wiseman, Leon Guanicki, and Lucas Caberlet. Oh, well, that was easy just because it's Caberlet. That was an easy one to do. And then their goalies are Grubauer and Matthias Nurenberger. Not as many NHLers, but when you have a team that has a 1-2 punch, Draisaitl and Stützle, I don't think they should be underestimated.
No, and I was curious to see what their lines were, because obviously Draisaitl and Stützle are both center icemen, but you could see a world where they want to stack up a line, but I just think that Germany rightfully elected for depth there. So to have Draisaitl and Stützle as on two different lines, they'll play together on the power play and in other situations, but I think that that's smart to keep them on different lines. JJ Peterka is a legit top 6 winger at the NHL level, and Moritz Seider is a Norris type defenseman. So they're obviously top heavy. What they lack in depth, again, this is not me trying to belittle or overlook the names on the roster that I don't know. It's just that I'm not familiar with players that are playing in Europe. But from an NHL perspective, I do think, it is just because a player's not playing in the NHL, it doesn't mean that they can't based on skills. Sometimes these guys prefer to stay in Europe. But I do
100%.
think looking at an international roster and seeing how many NHLers are on it is a good indication of, who should be a favorite or not. It just is a reality. So Germany's top heavy, but we'll see how they do.
Yeah, and you're right. So because Daily Faceoff also has like their power play because they've been watching their practices. So their power play right now, first power play unit is Lucas Reichel, Stützle at center with Leon Draisaitl on the wing with Seider and Paterka. That's a deadly power play. So
Yes.
good for them. Next, you know what? I'm gonna do this instead of butchering everything. I'm just gonna go off the NHL guys. It's just easier that way. We're gonna go to Team Slovakia, who I think is again is a team to watch because they're one of those. Them and Czechia are those two teams that I'm going to be like because you already expect Finland and Sweden to be good. They're the other two European teams that I think are on the up and coming. So for NHL guys, they got Tatar, they got Adam Ruzicka, they got Juraj Slavkovsky, they've got Dabor Dorofkovsky. I know he plays for St. Louis. Martin Prospel. They've got defense. They got Simon Nemec. They've got Eric Cernak, Peter Cernak, and then for goaltending, they've got Adam. I don't even know the two goalies. So they're not as NHL as well. So again, going with a team that probably plays together a lot more than we think.
Yeah, and Court, that's a good point you made just now and earlier when you talk about the international teams. Well, they're all international, but these teams that don't have a lot of NHLers, they do probably have a lot of international play together, whereas these NHL guys, it's more of an all-star team, lack of chemistry. But what's interesting about the Slovaks is this is a roster I look at and I say, they've kind of had a bit of a fall from grace because they did have some really strong international teams in the 90s, 2000s. For example, here's some names from the 2010 Olympic roster for Slovakia. Pavel Dimitra, Marian Hossa, Michael Hanzel, Richard Zednik, Marian Gaborik, Joseph Stumpel, Zdeno Chara, Miroslav Satan, Thomas Kopetsky, Andre Sekera, Andre Mazzaros. Like that, those are, and I look at this,
deadly players.
I
like
look at this
Dimitra was
roster.
ridiculous.
Yeah. Even Peter Bondra, I think, may have been a Slovak.
He was.
But then you look at this roster, and it's like, okay, Juraj Slavkovsky, right? And it's great player, but it kind of stops at him. I mean, Simo Nemec and Eric Cernak, those guys are, they're definitely very respectable NHL defensemen. But I can't help but look at the Slovak program and say they've kind of descended a little bit since the last time we saw best on best at the Olympics.
I think you made a good point there. Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to probably see like Thomas Tatar, we know as a player, and with more ice time, I think he's going to shine. I think Slavkovsky, I'm not expecting much from the Slovaks, to be honest. But we'll see. Like I keep saying about Latvia and Slovaks, they seem to be teams that everybody underestimates, and then they only lose like 2-1.
Yeah.
So they could come out with a good system and a tight checking game, but we'll go from there. Next on the list, and I am going by power rankings, if anybody hasn't even noticed. Next on the list is Team Finland. Team Finland is good. So we got Mikko Rantanen, Roope Hintz, Mikael Granlund, Arturi Lehkonen, Sebastian Aho, Tero Teravainen, Luosterainen, Lundell, Capo Kakko, Tolvanen, Hula, Joel Almira, Mikko Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, Nico Mikkola, Rasmus Ristolainen, Ole Mata, Henry Yukihiro, and then in net, like they're disgusting. And that's the crazy part. They have UC Saros and Kevin Lankinen. They got a really good team.
They do.
Fast team.
So I personally, I'm looking so forward to watching them play the Swedes in group play because it's such a coin flip for me about who wins that group. I think both teams.
And Saros, sorry, my apologies, isn't going to be there because it's going to be Jonas Kopersello now.
Right.
My apologies.
Bruins tip of the cap there. I'm curious to see who wins this group between them and the Finns. Or I'm sorry, between them and the Swedes. The one name you didn't mention, Court, and you didn't mention him because he won't be playing, is Sasha Barkov.
I know.
That to me is a major blow to. they're still capable of upsetting anybody for a gold medal, but I think that their gold medal chances took a major hit when he wasn't available at the start of the season. Because if you have Barkov on that team, they're that much better. What I like about this roster, even without Barkov, though, is yes, they're fast, like you said, but they're also big, and they're a contrasting style to the Swedes. Like, I think the Swedes have a little bit more finesse, but the Finns are more their blue line. Like, Miro Heiskanen is one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He's going to play with Esa Lundell, who he plays with in Dallas. But that second pair, I think Finland's D drops off on their third pair, but their second pair, have fun on smaller Olympic ice, by the way, playing against Nico Mikkola and Rasmus Ristolainen. That's going to be a tough pair to generate offense against.
And they throw out Lundell and Luosterainen against you while you're doing it at the same time
Yes.
up front. Like
Yeah.
I agree with you with no Barkov, that would move Hintz down to possibly the second line as a winger. And then your first line would have been Barkov, Rantanen, and Granlund, which is disgusting. And I think Finland would have probably be ahead of Sweden if Barkov was there, because we can look what Barkov's impact has been on Florida this year. Everybody
Yeah.
kept saying, "Oh, Florida's going to be fine even without Barkov," and they are probably not making the playoffs because they don't have Sasha Barkov.
Right.
So that gets us to Team Sweden. Philip Forsberg, and supposedly I'm saying that wrong. I saw a video the other day. Forsberg is said differently, but that's
Really?
also like Timo Solani. We call it Timo Solani, and it's Selene. If you actually say it like if he's finished, it's Selene, not Solani.
Huh.
Anyways, Philip Forsberg, Joel Eriksson Ek, who highly underrated Joel Eriksson Ek. He is one heck of a two-way forward. Adrian Kempe, Lucas Raymond, Elias Lindholm, Jasper Bratt, Elias Pettersson, Mika Zibanejad, Richard Raquel, Pontus Holmberg, Alex Wenberg, Gabriel Landeskog, Gustav Forsling, Rasmus Dahlin, Victor Hedman, Rasmus Anderson, Philip Broberg, Eric Carlson, and in net, I think they've got the two because right now William Nylander's injured, Philip Gustafsson and Yakov Markstrom.
Is Nylander out for significantly or
day to day?
Really?
Yeah, he didn't practice today and yesterday for Sweden. But
Oh,
I
I
look at
didn't.
Sweden's roster.
Yeah.
That's a good team.
Yeah, it's a really good team, and unlike the Finns, Sweden, to my knowledge, they again outside of Nylander apparently, but they are healthy.
And Elias Lindholm is second line center, by the way, people.
Oh, all right. So a bit of an elevated role for him compared to Four Nations, where I think he was down the depth chart. But the Swedes, to me, they have like a handful of forwards court that, like, if they're on their game, they're absolute game changers. But they're also capable of just taking nights off. And I'm talking about Zibanejad and Elias Pettersson and
100%.
guys like that. Even Willie Nylander. It's like, so if you get their best, I think the Swedes have a strong case to, win a gold medal and upset, Canada or the US.
Yeah, I think Swede's going to be another grinder team. They're going to grind you down because they're going to play their game. They play a tight, you know what? The Swedes play a lot like the Boston Bruins. They play a tight checking game. That's the way they play. And that's why I think Elias Lindholm was a good fit for Boston, no matter what. He plays Boston Bruin hockey, regardless whether people like his contract or not.
Yep.
The way he plays the game. And it's also why Boston drafts Swedes. They always have. They do play a very similar game. I think Sweden is going to be one of the teams to beat in this tournament. Are they the team to beat? Probably not, because I had this team ahead of them, and that's Team Czechia. And that has nothing to do with David Pastrnak. It has everything to do with looking at the way this team has played on international ice over the last couple of years. I think Czechia has proven themselves to be a team to beat. So your top line is Natchez, Thomas Hertl, who, believe it or not, Hertl is actually having a very good year with the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and David Pastrnak. But all Hertl has to do is pretty much just skate out there and pass the puck to one of them. Then you have Palat, Kampf, Kasha, Cervenka, Sedlak, Tomasic, Stransky, Faska, Kubliak. Now they also are a team that is not all full of NHLers. They have Roenick, Gudis, Ruda, and Spacek on the back end. And then they have Zaka, who's out for the tournament, unfortunately. Lucas Dostal, that's another reason. I think Lucas Dostal is one of the better goalies that's in this tournament. He's played very good. And then they have Vejmelka. I just look at Czechia. They're full of a lot of guys that play in the KHL who are like the best players in that KHL. I look at any team with Natchez and Pastrnak on that top line to be deadly, especially in international play.
Oh yeah, I like the Czechs are a good balance of NHL players and European pro players. And obviously as a team they won the World Championships a couple of years ago. Again, it's more of a watered down international tournament because so many NHL players elect to go away for the off season or they're in the playoffs still. But
Hey, in
um,
Canada, they were pissed that they lost. Pissed.
yeah, but they weren't playing a Canadian roster that was what you're seeing in this tournament. But yeah, Zaka's a big injury for them. You lose a top six forward, similar to the loss that Barkov is going to have on the Finns. Zaka presents a parallel loss for the Czechs,
Yep.
relatively speaking.
Would have been their second line center.
Yeah, I mean, with or without Zaka in this tournament, I still think the Czechs have the fifth best roster on paper. That doesn't speak to the international success that you're talking about, but at least on paper, I have them. Even if they had Zaka, I would have them behind Canada, U.S., Finland, Sweden. If you include everybody, I think the Czechs have the sixth best international program right now on paper behind Canada, US, Finland, Sweden, and Russia if they were participating, which they
Yes,
obviously are
Russia's not. But
not.
yes, I agree with you. Russia's up there.
So yeah, I expect the Czechs, I mean, I expect them to come in second place in Group A. I don't think they'll get a preliminary bye to the quarterfinals. I think they will be the first team to, I think they'll be probably seed 5 or 6, and that means that they'll play probably seed 11 or 12, which will probably be France or Italy, and they should advance to the quarterfinals to play one of Canada, US, Finland, or Sweden, in my opinion.
I would agree with your opinion, Brian. So this might be controversial or not, but like my next, and the reason I had Czechia higher than Sweden and Finland was solely based on international play. When I was doing my rankings, I just felt that over the last couple of years internationally, they played very well, and Sweden and Finland have actually kind of disappointed. Finland hasn't. Finland kind of has played a lot better, but Sweden is kind of been a letdown in the last little bit. All around World Juniors, everything. I'm just looking at programs. But next on the list is Team USA, if we're going power rankings here. So your starting line is Getzel, Matthews, Boldy, very good line. Brady Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk. Have fun covering that one for yourself, Eichel. Then you've got Kyle Connor, Dylan Larkin, Tage Thompson. I think is going to be one of the most underrated lines in the tournament. Is this third line on Team USA? I think they're going to be deadly. Then you got JT Miller, Brock Nelson, and Jack Hughes, which is hilarious. Jack Hughes is your fourth line right wing. On defense, now I will say this, and I said this before. I think Team USA has the best defense in the tournament. Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, Jacob Slavin, Brock Faber, Noah Hannafin, Zach Werenski, and then you have your sitting on the bench pair of Jake Sanderson, and your extra attackers right now are Jake Sanderson and Vincent Trocheck. Those are your extra attackers. I really like Team USA's defense. And then in goal, you've got Hellebuck, Swayman, and Jake Ottinger. Now, they haven't decided who's getting the starts. A lot of people are saying it's going to be Hellebuck, but they're saying that there's a serious conversation between Swayman and Ottinger to see who gets that second spot. But I think Team USA's defense is disgustingly good.
Yeah, it is. And like I said earlier, I just don't see Team USA being challenged enough in group play to have a goalie controversy. So we'll
That's a good
see.
point.
We'll see. But yeah, I think obviously for me, this US roster should have had at least one of Jason Robertson, and that's the one I wanted, or Cole Caulfield. So you have your two top American goal scorers not even on this team.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I still think that on paper, this is the most talented roster the U.S. has ever iced at the Olympics. And I'll just say this. I think that the U.S. has the most well-rounded team at the Olympics this year. But that doesn't mean that I think that matters, because in a one-game elimination type situation, like, for example, Court, people will look at the U.S. roster, say U.S. has the better goaltending compared to Canada. And I would say, yes, they
agree.
do. They do. But in a 7-game series, that might matter. But in a one-game situation, I don't know if having the goalie edge necessarily will matter. So I think they're the most well-rounded team, but I don't necessarily know if that will translate to a gold medal, because Canada obviously is, we'll get to them in a little bit.
Yeah, and I would agree with you with regards to, I think it's Cole Caulfield was the absolute ridiculousness that he's not there. I know a lot of people like Jason Robertson because he can score goals. I just think Cole Caulfield is a big game player. In an international play, I think he's proven himself every single time he's ever done it. He's Mr. Game 7. They talk about it here in Canada. Like, that guy scores on Hockey Night in Canada all the time, and he scores for the Habs in OT, and it's like a big thing. I think the guy that shouldn't have made this team was JT Miller. I have no understanding why a cancer in the dressing room made this hockey club over Cole Caulfield. Like, you could have Trocheck be on that bottom pair, that bottom line, and throw Caulfield in if Thompson can't keep up, because he's the one wild card. I think Tage Thompson, they brought him in because Canada's not a small team either, and they saw what happened in the Four Nations. But I think Thompson's got speed and all that, but I think Cole Caulfield is a guy that could go in the out of lineup for Tage Thompson, and you could be on your third line. Even though, and I'm probably going to get lambasted for this, I'm not a fan of Brady Tkachuk. I think his body is, only because I think his body's done. I truly
Really?
do. Yeah, his injury is really bad for his groin. I think Brady Tkachuk isn't as good as, sorry, Matthew Tkachuk, not Brady. My apologies. Jesus,
Okay.
I'm looking at it.
Okay.
I think Matthew Tkachuk. I think Brady Tkachuk is the better of the Tkachuk brothers, and I think Matthew is not as going to be as effective unless his body's fully healthy. I
Okay.
just don't. I think Brady is one heck of a hockey player. Like,
Mm.
one heck of a hockey player. I think he's better of the two. I just think Matthew is like, could be a liability, because if he's hurt and they're playing him and he's hurt, I'd rather have a guy that's healthy in the lineup.
Okay.
That's all. That's all the way I look at it, because I'm not sure if he's healthy. I've watched all these behind the scenes stuff of like the road to
Mm.
the Winter Classic. That guy's injury was bad.
Yeah.
That groin injury, like the muscles separated. Like, it wasn't
Mm.
even attached.
Yeah. Well, I guess if he's hurt significantly, then yeah, I would agree with you. I mean,
Yeah,
I
only
mean,
if he's hurt. I'm just saying, if
yeah,
he's hurt significant, like, he's got a lot of mileage on his body already,
sure
and
does.
it
Yeah.
and it worries me. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So let's get to Team Canada. Favorites to win the tournament, and it's no secret why. I put out a poll, not a poll. I put out a list the other day. I think it's easy to say Canada has the three best players in the tournament, but I agree with you, and I said this before. I think the US has better goaltending, and they have better defense by far,
Right.
especially goaltending and defense. So I think that does make them a better overall team. But I think Canada has more game breakers and better
Yeah.
players. I think that's the way to look at it. But I think
Yeah.
I truly think they're 1A, 1B. And on any given night, anybody can win. I think it's been proven over the last couple of years that Canada's had to beat the United States in overtime almost every time to win. The golden goal was in overtime. McDavid's goal was in overtime. So Canada's roster, Macklin Celebrini, one of the best players in the league. Unbelievable, this kid. Connor McDavid, Tom Wilson. Still think this is going to be a crazy top line with Tom Wilson. See how I think they're just like, no one else. He's not going to be able to catch up to them, and he won't put them offside. So I'll just put him there. And if anybody tries to mess with Macklin or Connor McDavid, then he'll just beat the living piss out of them. Then you have Nick Suzuki, which I was impressed, gets to be up on the second line with Nathan
Mm.
McKinnon and Brad Marchand. Like this line, especially because Nathan McKinnon, again, one of the best players in the world. I think it goes McDavid, McKinnon, Makar. And they're just unbelievable. Like,
Yeah.
unbelievable. The fact that Connor Bedard didn't make this team, even as like the third guy after people were getting hurt. And I think Connor Bedard would be a top 6 player on Team USA. And then you got Mark Stone, Sidney Crosby as your third line checking center with Mitch Marner. And people don't give Mitch Marner enough credit for his 2-way game. I think that is a very good checking line. It's kind
Mm.
of crazy that Sidney Crosby is your third line checking center. And then you have Brandon Hagel, Bo Horvat, and Sam Reinhart. I'm going to kick the living daylights out of you line. That's like having 3 Kachuk brothers on your bottom line. And then your defense. I don't think the defense is as good. I don't. You got Devon Taves, Cal McCarr, one of the best players in the world, Josh Morrissey, Colton Parenko, who is not having the best year in St. Louis, Drew Doughty, who, like Matthew Tkachuk, he's old and his body's a little beat up. Thomas Harley, who proved himself the last time, and then they have Shea Theodore as your extra defenseman. And then in goal, this is where I think Canada's got an issue, because I don't think he's good. I really don't. I don't care. The guy has just proven year after year that he's just not good for his team right now. But we've got Jordan Binnington and Logan Thompson, and then we have Darcy Kemper. But I think, this is me personally, that Logan Thompson will be the starting goalie. And I hope
Really?
so, because he's been one of the best goalies in the NHL this year. He used to play for Bruce in Vegas, and they know how good he is. I understand Jordan Binnington's Mr. Game 7, but he isn't Mr. anything else until he gets to that game.
Mm. Well, for the same reasons, I think the U.S. has a problem in group play, not having enough stiff competition to challenge the goaltending. Canada will be challenged in the group play, so they'll at least be able to eyeball, is it Binnington or Kemper, whomever, Thompson. So yeah, I don't think Canada's goalie issues will. Like I said, if this was a 7-game series against these teams, maybe, but 1 game elimination, So I look at Canada's forward group, and while I say that technically I think the U.S. has the most well-rounded rosters because I think the U.S. has the second best forward group, the best decor, and the best goaltending.
I agree.
But Canada gets the check mark. And by the way, Canada's decor, I mean, you still have the best defenseman in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking 1 through 6, but Canada's forward core, I think, is just so far and away the best forward group that it makes up for any small discrepancy in the other areas that go to the U.S. technically, or maybe Sweden, whomever. So, I mean, you look at their forwards, when you have Sidney Crosby as your third line center, when you have the reigning Conn Smythe winner as your extra forward and Sam Bennett, who, by the way, didn't even make the roster right away, when you have a 60-goal scorer in Sam Reinhart on the fourth line, it's an embarrassment of riches. And the Canadians core, I'll put it to you this way, as Ric Flair once said, to be the man, you have to beat the man. And Canada, in my opinion, is rightfully the favorites for the gold. And I think it's going to be a fantastic tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very excited to see best on best. I'm also very excited that we're going to get more of this, not just the Olympics. We're going to see more, Four Nations Cups. I'm very excited for that we get more of this type of hockey because I think the Four Nations showed us last year, one, that Canada and United States, they're equals again. Like, the programs have gotten there and the talent is there on both sides. And that was some of the best hockey we've watched. And I think it made people fans of the game. And I'm always about growing the game. And I just love the Four Nations, how amazing it was.
Mm.
Um, I still right now my pick is Canada to win it all. But I'm also Canadian and I want my national pride, and that's just the way it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
But I have this feeling there's gonna be this team that we don't see coming, like a Finland or a Sweden, that just comes out of nowhere to win this bad boy.
Italy.
So who's your pick to win it all?
Yeah,
who do you got in the finals? I have Canada, US in the finals.
I have Canada, US in the finals. It's funny. If it were a 7-game playoff series, I would feel more comfortable taking the US because I do think goaltending and defense and style of play would be more applicable here. In a 1-game scenario, I'm gonna say US, and here's why. Court. A, it's because I'm American. So if I'm wrong, I will happily be wrong.
And for the listeners, I'm dual citizen. I am American and Canadian, but I do live in Canada, and so I am biased that way.
So the one thing I'll hang my hat on here is we saw the U.S. and Canada play twice last February. But in the gold medal game, it obviously came down to Connor McDavid scoring, and the U.S. had a bunch of chances beforehand. I didn't think Austin Matthews was very good in that tournament. But the Canadians got Cale Makar for the gold medal game in Four Nations. They played a U.S. team without Charlie McAvoy and without Quinn Hughes. So I think that when you're down your top 2 defensemen, it's worth mentioning. So they obviously are both playing in this tournament, and that is why I'm going to say USA all the way.
Hey, I don't disagree with you. Not having Quinn Hughes, I think, was huge. When I say Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the world, he is. But Quinn Hughes is second, and the drop off isn't rude to say, but the drop off is huge after those two. Like Cale Makar is the best defenseman we have seen in the NHL since Bobby Orr. What he does is unbelievable on the ice.
He's incredible.
But Quinn Hughes is right up there, and I'm not trying to insult the Ray Borks and the Nicholas Lindstroms, and I'm not saying that these guys are better. I'm just saying that's how good Quinn Hughes and Cal. If there was no Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes is the best player the best defenseman in the NHL. But I think the drop off of who's next it's a big one. Like I think Mort Seider's up there. I think there's guys up there. I think Jacob Slavin is up there. Charlie McAvoy's up there. Yeah, agreed. Werenski, but I think there's more American players up there in that next tier than there are Canadian. I just think that's the way it is. I think there is an up and coming Canadian guy that got left off the roster when we talked about people being left off the roster. Yes. I think Team Canada left 2 players off their roster that could easily be on the Team USA team or any other team in this tournament. and that's Connor Bedard and Matthew Schaefer. I think Matthew Schaefer is going to be in that echelon of the Quinn Hugheses and Cal McCarrs, and I think Connor Bedard's going to be in that echelon of, top players in the world that we talk about
Mm,
top players, and they're not even there. And I
no.
think not having Schaefer there will be the one they regret. I understand having Doughty. I understand all that. I
Yeah.
still think Schaefer should be there over Doughty.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think Schaefer is outstanding. I mean, like Quinn Hudson, right? Or I'm sorry, Lane Hudson. Lane
Very good
Hudson,
defenseman. I love him.
but like, is he? I think he might be. Like, I think Schaefer might be that even better than Elaine Hudson for Canada.
But I think Lane Hudson's better than a defenseman on Team Canada. I think Lane Hudson's two-way game is very underrated. I watch a lot of Habs games because it's always
Mhm.
on TV here. I think he's very underrated for his two-way hockey game.
Yeah. So you mentioned him earlier, Court. You know who I think is sneaky the most important player for the U.S. For their gold medal aspirations is Jacob Slavin, because I think it goes through Canada if you're the U.S., whether it's the semis or the gold medal game. And as much as Quinn Hughes being around is a huge addition for the Americans, he's not going to be covering Connor McDavid. It's going to be Jacob Slavin and Brock Faber. So that pairing, to me, boys, eat your pasta, eat your meatballs, get your energy and your carbs, because that's going to be the assignment, right? That to me is huge. Jacob Slavin, he had a coming out party at the Four Nations, and I think the world of how he plays defense. He's outstanding.
I agree. I knew he was good, but after Four Nations, him and Zach Werenski, I was like,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
"Ooh." Like,
Mm-hmm.
just it blew me away, and I think Quinn Hughes has a lot to prove
Yeah.
because he has shown in big games that he doesn't show up. He does a lot of Austin Matthews. You mentioned him
Mm.
before. I think Austin Matthews is the perfect example of a guy that just doesn't show up in big games. It's unfortunate. These are just facts. The Kachucks show up in big games.
Yep.
They're gamers. They show up. They give you everything they have. So they're going to be very important for you. And I think that's maybe the Tom Wilson factor is the Jacob Slavin kryptonite. Maybe that's why he's there.
And Matthews Court, like it. Matthews is such a game changer too, because you look at the Canadians forwards versus the US, and if Matthews is Matthews at his best, the
I
gap
mean,
gets
regular season Matthews when he plays like the Ottawa
yes.
Senators or somebody.
Yeah, but like
Mhm.
when he's at his best, if he can play at his best, it brings that gap a little bit closer together. It's like if you're gonna get the Austin Matthews we've seen in the last year and a half, you look at him and you say, oh, well, okay, like, but if he can be the near 70 goal guy, it's like that's a big difference. Can
100%.
he be what he's shown in the past in a tournament like this? If he can be, it's a huge difference. If you have Austin Matthews going, it's a huge difference. But I don't know if he will.
I 100% agree with you. I think for the U.S. to win gold, Austin Matthews and Quinn Hughes need to be the best players.
Yeah. Yep. I
They do.
agree.
In their position. They have to be the best players, and that's how you're going to win because Werenski and Slavin and Faber, the three you mentioned, they're gamers. They're
Mhm.
going to go out there and give you everything they have. Or as Faber likes some people call is the McAvoy twin. But
He
even
is.
not having McAvoy in Four Nations hurt you. Like,
Yeah.
that's a huge loss. So I think Team USA is going to be good, but I want to hear from all of you. You let me know in the comments who you think you're going to win. I know there's going to be a lot of Team USAs in there. I know that's just going to be the norm. But Brian, thank you for joining me today. I truly, truly appreciate it. Why don't you let everybody know what you got going on and what everybody should check out?
Okay, yeah. You can hear me on the Skate Podcast with WEEI, my podcast, the Puck Ups Podcast, and my writing is on. Just follow me on Twitter at Brian DeFilce _, and all my stuff is there. So yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
I
I'll
love being here too. Love talking to you, Court.
that's why I had you back on. I really had a
Yeah.
great time talking to you. So I'll put all the links to everything Brian does in the comments down below. As always, click like, subscribe. Thank you so much for the support. This has been a fantastic first half to the NHL season, and we're about to watch some of the best hockey of the year that's not the Stanley Cup playoffs. We don't get best on best very often. You're about to watch it. Have some fun. See you next time.